Welcome, everyone. I'm really excited about this conversation today. Thanks for joining this conversation. I have Dr. Manu Jaggi here with me, who's an amazing research scientist who's doing some incredible work in the area of well-being. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Chopra's Chief Medical Officer. And of course, we're always looking at how to blend wisdom traditions and knowledge and medicine with modern science because they're very complementary. And I think Dr. Jaggi is going to describe his journey and how we blend science with ancient wisdom. So welcome. Thank you for being here with me. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your story? It's fascinating.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Sheila, for that very kind introduction. It's a pleasure and honor to be in conversation with you today. Well, how do I describe myself? I think I would call myself a very curious biologist who has always had a very open mind. And I have been scientifically investigating several ancient practices and their benefits on human health and wellness. So that's in short what I do, but in terms of a little bit more about I started my formal education actually in the field of pharmaceutical sciences, but I very quickly kind of realized that my calling is somewhere else, and I got into cancer research. So I did my doctorate and postdoctorate in tumor immunology. So I'm more of a immuno-oncologist, which is where I spent my next 10, 15 years developing cancer drugs and essentially working on the principle of, how does raising the immunity prevent cancer? Then again, I shifted my focus a little bit more. I come from an organization in India, which is one of the largest and oldest healthcare organization that focuses on Ayurveda. It could actually well be the largest in the world. And being at a place like that, I could not stay away from learning a little bit of Ayurveda, although I really don't call myself an expert in yoga, Ayurveda, meditation. No, I'm none of that. But I did learn Ayurveda a little differently, went on to learn the traditional Chinese medicine and also a little bit of African medicine. And in more recent times, in the last 5 or 6 years, I have shifted my focus to functional medicine and the impact of that on the overall wellness. So that's what I do today. I have a team of about 200 biologists, and we all work together to unravel some of these mysteries of the ancient wisdom. That's what I do.
Wow, I just find that so fascinating, and I'm excited to be able to spend more time with you at our upcoming event in LA. Well within, you'll be giving some you'll be on a panel there, and also in a breakout session to talk more about this topic. And you brought up a couple of interesting points that I'm really fascinated with, and I've been excited again in science, especially I definitely practice Ayurvedic medicine as my foundation, but I'm still a practicing clinician, so I see patients in a regular medical setting. And obviously cancer is something I see a lot that, can turn up in my patients. And I've been in medicine now over probably 25, almost 30 years. And in that time, like immunotherapy and an appreciation of not just kind of getting rid of cancer cells, but how do we support our immune system to do the rest, and even when it comes to recurrence, and preventing recurrence, there's so much to learn about how our own innate healing systems really are doing the job. And that's one thing I've learned in medicine a lot is we need to help the body sometimes, but really it's that innate healing that is really doing the the ultimate healing and biology is very complex. And so there are many topics I want to get into with you, especially like the herbs and some of the product development you worked on. But I also wanted you to talk about, because you are interested in well-being as well, as a scientist, I think it's great to get very focused and, learn a lot about a certain mechanism. And you have this very expanded vision of what well-being is, and at Chopra, we talk about many different things based on Ayurvedic lifestyle. And nowadays, lifestyle medicine and people are starting to understand how important nutrition and movement are, which we consider them definitely pillars of well-being, but also stress management. Our primary tool being meditation that we teach, emotional regulation, getting good sleep, and then all your daily practices that you do. And we'll, be talking about a lot of that at Well Within, but maybe you could talk a little bit about what you see as well-being.
Absolutely. Dr. Sheila, let me give you my own personal example, how I got pulled into this. Of course, I've always had the interest in looking at, what exactly is wellness, how do we define that? To me, wellness is a balance of reducing the overall inflammation in the body, one, two, modulating the immunity, three, it's the cognitive health, and fourth, I think very importantly, is also the restoration of the gut health, the good and the bad bacteria, the restoration of the microbiome. Now, coming back to my own personal example, it was about, I think 2 or 3 years ago, just when the COVID was starting, I went for a regular checkup, which I do every, once in a year. And I was actually pretty aghast to see that, my parameters were all over the place. My inflammation seemed pretty high. I think I was turning pre-diabetic. My blood pressure was high. My liver enzymes were all elevated. And I was a little overweight, I must confess. So, that set me thinking, I have to take my own health in my own hands. And that was the time, actually, I'd just been to this A4M conference that happens, every year in Vegas. And it was the first time I heard about the intermittent fasting. I had no idea, what that was. I came back and I said, I must practice this. And it was also at the same time we were using a technology back home called the multiplexing, where we would look at what different medicinal herbs do to various proteins inside us as validated markers. So at protein level or gene level, what do these herbs do? So with our ability to be able to look at these markers, I set off with this intermittent fasting thing, and I had no exposure to yoga until then, but I started to practice a little bit of yoga. I don't know how well I was able to do it, but I think it helped me, so I must be doing something correct. And did a few other things, a little bit of meditation. And interestingly, when I started doing this, I did a biomarker analysis on myself. Let me explain you what I did. So we'd been working on these biomarkers. Essentially, what you do is you take a drop of blood, or you take a little bit of your saliva or a drop of urine, and you put it on a chip. And you can measure literally 100 of markers using one simple test in half an hour. And when I saw my markers, all my markers were in the reds and the oranges. And I started to do a few of these things. And 6 months later, I did this test again, and then again after 6 months. And to my relief, I started to see these markers come down. So that's when I realized the power of what these things can do, and the fact that you actually have your own health in your in your own hands. You don't need to depend on anybody for that. That's also when I started to think, Dr. Sheila, modern medicine has always been talking about sickness, right? So you fall sick, you go to a doctor says, go and get these tests done. And then you go back to the report and you say, the doctor says that your HbA1c is very high, your blood glucose is very high, you're sick, right? So as opposed to sickness, why don't we look at our wellness index? Why don't we look at how well we are? So that's how, this whole concept of biomarkers and quantifying your wellness, we started working on that. And interestingly, then we also started to measure what is the effect of meditation on your wellness in terms of, measurement of those markers. What does yoga do? What does music therapy do? What does biofield energy do? Is there a way you can align your chakras? Yes, there are ways to do that. And so that's been my journey in the last 3 or 4 years. And a long way to go, but I think we are now beginning to understand this whole concept of wellness and quantifying it a little better.
Yeah, you bring up so many great points, and thank you for sharing your story, because I think a lot of people experience that, right? Because you can feel pretty well, especially when you're not paying attention to your body's signals, but then you go and you realize, oh, things are actually happening, like inflammation and other metabolic issues that will lead to disease, and in Ayurveda and Ayurvedic medicine, there are stages to disease, and there are stages where you may not feel any symptoms. And so, the lifestyle there are teachings that keep you in balance, just again, knowing your mind-body and mind-body type. But again, there was an appreciation that there can be things happening in the body that you can't feel. So I think, the future of medicine is going to be like biomarkers and really figuring out a good systematic way of measuring well-being. And as you said, giving people practices and putting their health back in their own hands, and not waiting till people get sick, and even now it's amazing how many patients, there's been a lot of research in the last, 10, 15 years, definitely since I've been in medicine, on reversal of diabetes, reversal of heart disease. So even once you do have those, sorry, there's something in my eye. Even when you are diagnosed with them, they actually can be reversible to some degree. Everyone's different, of course, but many patients aren't told that. They don't know that. So I find that really fascinating. I always, let people know that. Now it does involve changing diet, starting to move, doing maybe some meditation, yoga. So people have to, be engaged in their own health. But yeah, I think the future, and again, technology, this is where technology can actually help us. And, you mentioned things like biofield and energy. And I think a lot of these traditional practices can now be studied in a way that they couldn't be studied before because the technology is there. We can look at gene expression, we can check, measure electromagnetic and electrical energy around us that even 10 or 15 years ago seemed, woo-woo or out there. And so I think, that's developing those technologies can really help us with a lot of these measurements, but also tying back into the herbs, which I'm fascinated with, of course, because in Ayurveda and all the traditional cultures you mentioned in Africa and Peru and Chinese medicine, like Native American, like all traditional cultures use plants for healing. And I believe, and maybe you can comment on this, that with technology, we at some point will be able to look at a plant, look at an herb, really be able to pinpoint based on someone's maybe profile and how these plants interact with our genes and other things, like a really personalized program where we can use plants that naturally have less side effects for many things.
Right. Dr. Sheila, you mentioned a few very important concepts over here. You spoke about personalized medicine. You spoke about also perhaps use of artificial intelligence. And of course, you're an authority yourself on the doshas, the vata, pitta, kapha, something that we understand today in a slightly different language. But back then, when this was written down in the ancient text, nobody understood what is nutrigenomics. Today, we understand that you can have personalized nutrition, and that can address so many different problems. But coming to technology, I think um, we all sometimes take for granted that if you have the right herbs and you put them together, they would do what they're meant to do. It actually, unfortunately, doesn't happen that way, because the herbs have their own limitations, if I may say, that need to be addressed. And I, coming from a pharmaceutical background, I know the good side and the not so good side of the modern medicine. And with a little bit of exposure to Ayurveda, I also understand, the both sides of Ayurveda as well. So the intent is to bring the good things of both modern medicine and Ayurveda together. And the one issue that needs to be addressed with the medicinal herbs is their poor bioavailability. Several of these herbs, you ingest them, but there's only a fraction of that, that gets into your blood circulation and does what it is supposed to do. Similarly, you apply something on your skin, very many times, it doesn't even get down beyond the top layer. So that's where the technology comes in. Are there ways you can enhance the bioavailability? Is there a way you can make a active ingredient go deeper and faster into the skin? So that's something that we've been trying to address using some modern techniques like nanotization and so on and so forth. And also, very importantly, these herbs need to be mixed in a certain proportion for them to be able to synergize. There are so many different products out there in the market claiming to treat diabetes or hypertension. Why do some work? Why do others not work? At the end of the day, they all contain the neem and the jamun and the karelas and everything, which is supposed to work. I think it's got to do with addressing some of these things with technology that actually makes one better than the other. So I do think that technology has a very, very important role in creating the right products which are helpful for you. And of course, AI has a very, very important role. I truly believe, Dr. Sheila, that we are coming to a point where we can create, this may sound a little, out of a sci-fi film, but I do believe that we can create smart humans who are more creative, who are happier, and just better human beings. And all of that can be done by removing some negative energy, having the right nutrition, and use of all these ancient practices that we have been following for ages, but now with a very clear understanding as to what it does and how do we benefit. So I think we are at a very, very exciting point in our life. I know you're involved in, Dr. Sheila, a very, very interesting program that I've been following on aging, or if I may say, on reverse aging. I really believe that's a possibility.
Yeah.
You can, I mean, you would have seen the results, but to me, you spoke of reversing diabetes. I think we can, if not reverse aging, we can at least slow down aging for sure.
Right, exactly. No, I absolutely agree. And, the foundation of Ayurveda being consciousness-based and, the things we talk about is really unlocking that potential that we have within us to heal and to create new tissues. And as part of that, that includes reversing, especially premature aging. So in medicine, we have this concept of premature aging. So why not embrace this idea of reversal of aging, which still, sometimes in medicine, people, aren't on board with that yet. But if we can quicken aging and, get disease prematurely. And again, we use those terms a lot in medicine. Why not, put more energy into reversal of some of these diseases and also just aging. And again, I always tell people that doesn't mean we're going to go back to our 10-year-old body or 21-year-old body or whatever you want, but that we are going to be able to live to our fullest potential in every moment. And we can biologically, our body can be younger than our chronological age. And I do think, again, because now we have all these markers for aging and this new, using technology and science, this new language to describe all of these things, because of course in Ayurveda, they describe these things, they had this concept of kaya kalpa where, it's very intense though, where you have to, take very specific herbs and live in a cave for a year, but you can come out with a younger body, everything. So I always find this fascinating. And then I want to do, again, as you described, like look at the science, do tests, experiments. And again, yes, I think make that smarter. Why not use modern science, right, to validate these concepts like, we can create tissue that regenerates and, reverse, again, aging. And I think that is the future. Obviously, there are a lot of people that are interested in this topic, but do it in an intelligent way, and so I think that's where science comes in. It was interesting. I'll just share with the group and with you. I was looking through some archival videos that Deepak had recorded years ago. I think one of them was probably 25 years ago. And, he had written a book, Ageless Body, Timeless Mind, and Grow Younger, Live Longer. And it's amazing, like the concepts, of course, that come from these, like a lot from Ayurveda. He was talking about them then, but now we have so much science to validate all of the things that he was talking about. So, I think that's exciting. And I do think that's it's an exciting time, number one, to be in medicine, to be in science. And I'm more hopeful now, I think, than I was a while ago, that we'll be able to, validate some of these concepts and actually help people thrive, because it's one thing even to prevent disease or reverse disease or get people to a neutral state, but it's a whole nother, another concept to thrive and live to your fullest potential, which is, that should be the goal, right?
Right, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think, if we, broadly speaking, if we follow three things, one is, start believing in the concept of wellness as opposed to concept of sickness. One, two, we've been focusing way too much on diagnostics. I would say that, there is a need to shift to prognostics rather than diagnostics. Of course, diagnostics has its own place, but imagine a situation of Sheila, if you can actually predict what's going to happen 5 years down the road. Am I heading towards diabetes? Am I heading towards some kind of neurodegenerative disease, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's? Knowing that before, you can actually you can help yourself. And last but not the least, I think what's more important, and I've learned this from my experience in cancer, but this applies to any other disease, is that of prevention rather than treatment. Again, the focus has way too long been on treating something when it has actually happened. A lot of these things can be prevented. So this is what I believe are three important things to focus and use the ancient wisdom of Ayurveda, all the other ancient practices, put in some science, churn it well, and you've got a recipe.
Yeah, I love that. I think you froze for just a second, but I love, yeah, that recipe and churning it up. And yeah, those are a lot of the things we're going to be talking about at Well Within. And again, Ayurveda had this qualitative formulation of the doshas, the mind-body types, and the elements that that was predictive. You know, it's predictive. So different mind-body types, you can predict what diseases they're more likely to get, and then when you're practicing a daily routine that keeps your elements, doshas in balance, you're basically preventing disease. And so I think, again, that's a great foundation. And I love teaching that, and people can get lots of tools, and then adding that layer of even more personalization with kind of markers and science. I think that's only going to up level, and add to the wisdom that people have been using for thousands of years. And yeah, we're on the cusp of great advances, I think, thanks to researchers like you, and and again, people being interested in taking their health in their own hands. And I think people are more and more. So I'm really excited for our event, and to even showcase, some of the products that you've worked on, and that, people can use to help, to help with many different things. And yeah, I'm just excited about, sharing more of your knowledge. So any last words that you have for the audience?
Not really. This is really my first time at this retreat, and really looking forward to it. Initially, I was a little, if I may say, scared, because I thought, I don't understand all of this. I don't fit in. But you make me comfortable by telling me that everything that's being done is all backed by science, which is the way it should be. So makes me feel more comfortable, and very, very excited to to be a part of it, and hopefully share some of my knowledge, experience with everyone, and learn from everyone as well.
Yeah, it'll be a good time. It's always transformational for all of us, to attend the events and share knowledge, create community, all of those wonderful things. And you bring such an important element. Again, I think it's always been important as a company, for especially at Chopra, to blend ancient wisdom with modern science. And so thank you for being there, I'll get to thank you in person when we see each other. So really looking forward to it. And anyone who wants to join us, you can go to chopra.com/retreats, or just hit the retreat tab, Well Within, going on October 7th through 9th, I believe, but it's on the website. And yeah, hopefully you can join us. And thank you so much, Dr. Jaggi. Until we meet again, namaste.
Thank you. Pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you so much.